Okay, Stinger. There we go.
Like every Monday night, you are checking out Breakfast Super Raw.
Bon appetit as Don, Tony, and Mish dish out their opinions about the world of pro wrestling, sports, news, and pop culture. Breakfast Super Raw.
And now, your host, Mish and Don Tony.
You got a
Night
show
after
tonight.
WrestleMania, my asshole. Night after WrestleMania, my ass. Where's Brock Lesnar? Where's Adam? What? The Viking Raiders are back. Maurice is back.
Hey, I like Maurice.
I like Maurice too. I like it because this will be the photo for today's show after everything is over. As long as it passed standards and practices. I'm tired. Look, we'll dissect Raw tonight. Wasn't that bad, but for the night after WrestleMania, now you understand why we didn't have some big surprises yesterday. Because if you're not going to do it in front of 25,000 loud screaming fans, you hell are not going to do it in front of LED screens. I know Becky Lynch will probably be the exception, but wow. I'm not kidding. During the New Day versus Jaxson, Ryker, and Elias, I legit closed my eyes for about 10 minutes. I heard the match, but I was like, maybe I could sneak like a 10-minute nod and then just look at observers' results and then pretend like I saw the match, but I couldn't fall asleep. But good evening, everyone. Do you know, I just realized tonight that this is the first time you and I are doing a Monday Breakfast Soup Raw in 3 weeks. Yeah, because the 29th I did it solo. You had a few things you had to take care of. Last week, I didn't do one because I stood an extra night in Mohegan Sun because I hit for about $3,200. Videos on Twitter. So we're back today. WrestleMania is over with, and this is your edition of Breakfast Soup Raw. I am Don Tony, as always. Welcome. Join along with me is, officially,
Anthony Missionary Thomas. How's everybody doing? How's everybody feeling after the very long week so far? Because, I mean, you got to realize Monday we had Raw last week. Then Tuesday you kind of had a day off unless you were an NWA or AEW fan, not including all the other indie fans or indie shows that have been going on through the week. Wednesday you had the first night of TakeOver. Thursday you had the second night of TakeOver. Actually, no, Tuesday was the Hall of Fame. Holy shit, that's right. No, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday was SmackDown. Saturday was WrestleMania. Sunday was WrestleMania. And we're back on Raw. And then tomorrow's NXT. And then Wednesday, if you're an AEW fan, guess what? You got AEW.
Then you have Impact on Thursday and SmackDown on Friday, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. Great club song, by the way, in the early 80s. On and on. If anybody remembers that, props to you. Want to shout out everybody who's tuning in live tonight. Glad that you're up because very long week, and we got a little taste of normalcy, which is nice. Give it a couple of more months. You'll start seeing it on a more regular basis. As I've said before, ignore the goofs online that are telling you house shows are never returning, that it's just going to be pay-per-view. Ignore it. Ignore it. You saw so much emotion yesterday from the fans, from the wrestlers. They need the energy of the live fans to function properly. Absolutely. But, I guess before we talk about Raw, little press release that I want to read. Take literally about 45 seconds to read. It has to do with the current announcer situation with WWE programming. And you know what? Actually, forgive me. I promised myself I would do this before we got into anything tonight, wrestling news. Something that I want to say that I know 99% of the podcast out there it's not even something that they're going to bring up, or it might be an afterthought because someone posted on a chat room during a show. Thank you, Jazz. Jazz officially retiring from the wrestling ring, focusing on a trainer and personal stuff. She wrestled Deonna Purrazzo over the weekend. Title versus career, she lost. I know what you're going to say to me, everyone, that retirements, aren't always official. Think Terry Funk back in the day. But this seems to be pretty legit. Everybody I talk to says that, WWE was not going to do right with Jazz. Maybe she'll be back for, an Evolution Battle Royal or something, but her career is officially done. And I just wanted to say thank you, Jazz. I know you feel the same way as well.
No, I like Jazz.
Yeah.
She's been a great cornerstone of women's wrestling, and not just in WWE, but even in the indie feds, helping out a lot of the younger talent over the years. So, if this is her time that she feels like to retire, good for her, and like you said, never say never. Obviously, we talk about Terry Funk and among them many, many other wrestlers that have come back after they've retired, but I wouldn't necessarily be against the idea of seeing Jazz in a Battle Royal or a Royal Rumble or something down the road,
Contrary to my shirt, Jazz, yeah, I do give a shit. So, anyway, let's talk about the shake-up. Got to shake it up. Probably not the way we expected things to shake up right after Mania, but it has to do with the announced teams. Rather than just chop it all up and just sprinkle it on everyone, I'm going to read you the press release that WWE put out that pretty much addresses all the shows. WWE announced Adnan Virk. Some of you have seen him in the MLB Network. He will be the new play-by-play voice on Monday Night Raw. As you saw tonight, he did play-by-play with Byron Saxton and Corey Graves, and we will definitely comment on his work in a moment. In addition to Monday Night Raw, he will continue his work amongst the MLB Network and programming. As of right now, Samoa Joe is still with WWE as a member of the talent roster. So keep that thought in the back of your mind. Now, as far as SmackDown goes, we have Michael Cole. And wait, did they ever address who Michael Cole is going to be doing play-by-play with?
I'm not sure. It's not going to be Corey, is it?
No, Corey Graves is going to be on Raw. Corey Graves is going to remain on Raw. Tom Phillips would now be the new host of 205 Live and is going to oversee a lot of the programming that's going to be affiliated with Peacock. So if anybody thinks that Tom Phillips is on his way out and right now and everything, no, they're just actually rearranging everything. But as far as SmackDown goes, wow, when you think about it, shit, what's going to happen with SmackDown? It can't just be Michael Cole. I'm a little surprised.
Do you think they'll try and pick up Wade Barrett for SmackDown and then try and replace somebody down there in NXT? Because let's be honest, Wade Barrett is a hell of a color commentator, and I think he could only help a brand or a division like SmackDown. So if they don't have anybody chosen yet, do you think that they're going to hire within? Or do you think they're going to try and get somebody from the outside?
You know what? My gut feeling tells me that Corey Graves will be on both brands.
Okay.
Corey Graves did that before, and you need part of my French, he needed a wise ass to compliment Michael Cole. You know, Corey Graves is the Jesse Ventura. He's the sarcastic one. So I have a feeling we're going to see Corey Graves. I mean, the minute I hear something, I'll let everyone know. But my gut feeling tells me right now it'll probably be Corey Graves and Michael Cole, as pretty much it was before. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But that's pretty much the deal. Now, we had Adnan Virk. I keep thinking Vic, but I've seen him on MLB. Adnan Virk made his debut today. We tell it like it is. We don't sugarcoat. What'd you think of his debut today? And I'm not trying to set you up for a hit job, by the way, either.
No, I mean, it's not even really a hit job. It's his first experience in WWE, especially to put him out there on Raw and stuff like that. I think he did a good job. You could tell he's a professional broadcaster, but he didn't know the calls on the same level. He was stammering around a little bit, and they kind of razzed him about that, which was nice that he could take a joke and like laugh it off and stuff like that. I think mostly the guy has nerves. I don't know about how he sounds, though, because meanwhile, I mean, Virk might be a fantastic MLB, analyst or play-by-play guy. As far as WWE, I don't know if he has the voice, and I'm not necessarily knocking the guy for it, because I mean, different positions for different voices, especially in broadcasting. But you would think that they would try to fill the position, on Raw with somebody with a little bit more
wrestling background.
Yeah, that too.
I figured out what he reminds me of, and this is not a knock on Mr. Virk.
Oh, I'm not knocking either. Yeah.
If anybody, I know you're not either. I mean, look, when you listen to him, it sounds a little bit too polished. And I'm obviously cutting him complete slack because it's only his first night. But when he would give comments, what he's got to learn quickly is you got to say it's like putting 2 pounds of bologna in a 1 pound bag. You have to bring your point across in about 10 words, not 35. I mean, when he would talk about Charlotte Flair, he would just go on and on and on and on and on to make his point across. And that's because when you're doing the MLB network and you're talking about talents, and you could talk as long as you want. Here, you keep talking, Corey Graves is going to cut you off. Byron Saxton is going to cut your ass off. I'll tell you what he reminded me of today. And older fans out there that are around my age will, I think, agree with me more than anyone else. Any of you out there that watch like a lot of old school stuff, WWE Network stuff, old school section, I think you'll agree with me on this too. Back in the 80s, when I really started becoming a huge fan of wrestling, even though I was very young, we would get specials from Madison Square Garden. On the MSG network, you would get specials. Pro Wrestling would air once in a while. Latter years, when we would collect in tape trade videotapes, you would get a lot of WWF house shows from Canada, California, New York, and other places. And based on where the region was, you would have someone come in and do play-by-play for the WWF that wasn't their normal commentator. Like if you watched the WWE Network or if you watched even what you saw on TV back in the day, you would get Lord Alfred Hayes, you get Gorilla Monsoon, you get Superstar Billy Graham, you get Rod Trumgod. I always screw up his name. You get him. Those are pretty much the guys that you would get. Sometimes Jimmy Valiant would make a cameo, but if you watched it from Canada, you would get 1 or 2 play-by-play guys and Gorilla Monsoon. It's someone that you don't normally hear. Right now, Mr. Virk, Adnan reminds me of someone who is filling in or WWE doing an event in a different area, and this is just a regional play-by-play person. I have to get used to it, and I'm going to give him time because this is obviously a whole new venture. And, hey, he could knock it out of the park, or he could be a professional version of Mike Adamle. You know what I mean? He knows the basic stuff, and you could tell he's got a whole pad of notes because he's trying to like force certain words about, and it doesn't feel organic. I didn't think he did a bad job today. I thought he did fine, but it's definitely something to get used to. It's not just a strange voice. Like you said, it's very, very professional. Very professional.
Right. No,
maybe too professional.
He doesn't sound like a guy who isn't trained. Clearly he's trained. Clearly he's been doing this for a while. It's just, WWE is a completely different sport. It's a different element than calling Major League Baseball. I mean, even the breaks are completely different, So I think it's just a matter of time. And there was a little bit of camaraderie going on there because, when Verk would finish his sentence, Corey was right there to sweep in. And then when Corey was finished, Verk would come right back in there. I don't know if he's necessarily used to the 3-man team, but as far as back and forth with another guy, yeah, you can tell that he's very comfortable with that. So him and Corey had a couple of calls that were good together. They meshed off each other. So I think the biggest hurdle that he has is time, and that comes with time. So, there you go.
Why do you think WWE is so hell-bent on having some three commentary teams instead of 2?
I used to wonder if it was like some kind of a throwback to the way that WCW was and, different companies and promotions were. But I think in reality, it's to take the stress off of one man. It's very rare to find the Gordon Solys, Joey Styles, Mauro Ranallos of the world that you have somebody that can call an entire event by themselves. I mean, that's truly just an apex level of broadcasting. But when you have 3 people, the whole point of it is that the third person and the second person are there to rotate time so that you can take a little bit off of someone. So you can take a little bit off of the lead announcer,
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll give it some time. I think that's the respectful thing to do. Now, this excites me as far as Samoa Joe goes. Samoa Joe, I mean, I think some of you out there may agree. Samoa Joe might have been one of the biggest bright moments of the announcers team. I mean, he just, and look, I get it. He's got some in-ring shelf life left. Let him do the in-ring work, and then ultimately, he could go back into the commentating booth. But he just picked up on it beautifully. And, he must be ready for a return, and they must have plans for him, big plans. Because personally, I don't understand why you would remove him from the commentary booth. Then again, Samoa Joe could very well have told him, say, listen, I love doing this, but I still have time left in my career and I want to wrestle. Sure. Now, the big question is, do you think there's any chance they keep him around NXT?
At this point, I would think that Samoa Joe would kind of stay main roster. Not necessarily because he couldn't be very helpful for a lot of the NXT hopefuls down there, but I think at this point, I think people would enjoy seeing Samoa Joe back on the main roster. Not that he wouldn't do good down there. It just, I don't know, man. It would seem like a step backwards, especially because people remember his feud with AJ Styles, and you can easily put him on one of these shows, and he's going to be a lot more exciting for fans than, I don't know, the Viking Raiders. So... and I'm not trying to take a complete dig at those guys because, it's good to see them back. Good for them. They're a comedy act. Hopefully they stay a comedy act and they don't try to go down anything too serious. I'm fine with that. But, yeah, for them to be the big pop after Raw fell a little flat. But if Samoa Joe comes back, I think people would genuinely bite onto that.
Viking Raiders, as you said, made their return today. They tried to smoke and mirror it, WWE, with a competitive match, but again, the burial of Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander continues. Why is WWE so hell-bent on making their net worth next to nothing? You have a tag team division that is pretty shoddy. They represented the tag titles very well. They were excellent in the Hurt Business. And here's the thing. This reminds me, This reminds me of Billy Kay and Peyton Royce. As much as I did not like the Iconics team, obviously they had chemistry together. Yes, we don't have live fans in attendance, so maybe they had something to do with it. But all the reports were that they wanted to branch out Peyton Royce as a singles star. So what do they immediately do? They pair up with Lacey Evans. And you're saying to yourself, like, what the fuck was the purpose of all of this? You're just pairing her with Lacey Evans. So here's my point. You break up the Hurt Business because you want it to be focused on pretty much Bobby Lashley by himself. And what do? Right. You bring fucking T-Bar and Mace, which look like they're joining the Hurt Business. And don't get me wrong, and anybody that tunes into this show on a regular basis know, Mish and I are huge fans of Dijakovic. We are big fans of what Mace can do. So tweaking their character a little bit, I'm perfectly fine. But if they're going to align themselves with Bobby Lashley, please don't tell me this is still part of that storyline where Bobby Lashley wants people to take out Drew McIntyre. Because why dismantle the Hurt Business, one of the most enjoyable factions in recent memory that the fans enjoy seeing, just to put a tag team back in the Hurt Business?
Now, I'm totally just speculating here, but I can see almost a Retribution versus, Shelton Benjamin and Alexander kind of match or kind of coming, where there's a point where Retribution fails Lashley, or they do something that Lashley doesn't approve of, and then you can almost see the promo or the backstage segment where fucking Shelton Benjamin and Cedric come up to Bobby and go, yeah, see, when you had better friends, when you had people that actually fucking were part of,
right, but they're not reuniting them, though.
Right. Well, no. I know they're not reuniting them, but I can see there being a lot of, like, the closure isn't there yet as far as the Hurt Business goes.
Yeah. And
I think that adding Retribution in there is going to be kind of this pseudo multi-weird feud that can go on for a little bit, and more gimmicky stuff. At the end of the day, more gimmicky stuff. We know that they're all four of these men are capable of impressive matches. So, as far as the storyline goes, maybe we can dial that back a little bit, and maybe we can focus on the fact that all four of these guys can put on a fucking clinic out there. And I think that if you look at it like that with this storyline, which you can already see coming, I think you can find yourself enjoying it a little bit more. Yeah,
Chris Silver with Super Chat. They want to develop the storyline more with Lashley and Drew. I get that, but this is such a diversion, and I'm saying to myself, okay, who is Drew McIntyre going to team up with to offset T-Bar and Mace? Drew's got to team up with someone. I mean, we're not going to revisit him and Sheamus teaming up. Sheamus has gold now, and Sheamus is still a heel, so I don't see that. Oh, please, God, do not let me think they're going to have Drew and Braun Strowman. And you know what? Let's give WWE credit tonight. We did not get this. He did run around the ring once, but we didn't get the choo-choo. We didn't get the choo-choo. I don't think it's completely gone yet. But who's Drew McIntyre going to team up with?
Maybe Braun and Randy.
I don't know about Randy. But they got to do something with Randy, because it seems like his involvement with Bray Wyatt has come to a complete abrupt ending. And it was weird, too, because Randy Orton cut his promo tonight, and he's talking about how Alexa Bliss disappeared. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, Alexa Bliss disappeared. Am I forgetting something tonight? Was there a segment that I missed? Because earlier tonight we got introduced to Lilly. Look, yesterday we had this at WrestleMania. I thought it was awful. Props to the live fans who shitted all over it. After the event was over, Bray Wyatt teased this photo on social media. And if people don't know what that is, you got to Google the biblical story of Samson and Delilah. And Delilah manipulated Samson. And basically, this photo is to insinuate that Alexa Bliss manipulated Bray Wyatt. So what do we get today? We get Alexa Bliss, and we're thinking to ourselves, how are they going to salvage the awful shit that we got yesterday? And basically, how they're trying to salvage it is Alexa Bliss is saying that she realized that she doesn't need Bray Wyatt. She doesn't need The Fiend. That all of the hocus pocus, which is coming to an end, not too long from now, everybody, but all of the power that she's had it with The Fiend burnt to a crisp and not around. Even though if you followed the storyline, it was his spirit and this and that. So basically, she's saying now that she's got a wake-up call, and she introduces us to her new friend, Lilly, and that, Lilly and her are going to cause destruction. Now, let me tell you why right now I think this is awful. And it's nothing against Alexa Bliss, because you, me, and almost everybody tuning in will agree that Alexa Bliss has knocked her character out of the park. She's done a phenomenal job. How does Bray Wyatt get any revenge on Alexa Bliss? Or how does this confrontation happen when it's a male and a female? Because you know WWE is not going to have The Fiend or Bray Wyatt start tossing around Alexa Bliss like a salad. What's that interaction going to be? Are we just going to have awful science fiction segments with Alexa Bliss and Bray Wyatt? Where do you think this is going? And by the way, for anybody out there that was thinking what I was thinking earlier, I'll tell you one thing that Lilly does not have. All right, for people that were thinking this, I don't think Lily's got her family in Scotland. Lily can't lose. Lily's got the family in Scotland. I don't think this is Nikki Cross. I don't think it's Nikki Cross. What do you make out of this?
Not really sure. I mean, I shared my thoughts about how this was received at the second night. It was really bad. It was almost as if, the years of storyline between Orton and Bray Wyatt were almost secondary to where Alexa Bliss was going with this character. So
fuck is that? It's like tiger feet.
Oh, did you notice that?
The fuck is that?
Yeah, I don't know. So
I was looking at that. Snitsky must have gotten a hard on. I like the skull teeth, though. There you go. Great. I don't know, man. I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. You don't feel it? You're not feeling it either?
No, not really, man.
By the way, yesterday, this was the pose that I was talking about, how Alexa Bliss reminded me of the characters from Mars Attacks. That is the side-by-side. So I didn't have the right picture yesterday queued up, but that's the picture I was talking about. She kind of looked like the alien from Mars Attacks. But here's Alexa Bliss with Lilly. By the way, Alexa Bliss, they kind of changed her outfit today. No more of the schoolgirl stuff, more of like leather and dominatrix. I don't know, I kind of liked her look tonight. It's like a cross of the two. Cross was not intended, no pun intended. But yeah, so now we got Lilly. Anyway, a couple of more super chats, some shout outs. Edwin G. Yeah, they're calling Backlash WrestleMania Backlash. I'll be honest with you. I know you don't like the title too much. I have no problem with it because back in the day with WWF, they would have WrestleMania Revenge. They would have sub-shows after Mania that basically would be like the fallout of WrestleMania. So this is just to attach it. And I think the reason why they're going with this name is because probably almost every match you're going to see at Backlash is going to have a tie-in with WrestleMania. We already have Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley, which happened at Mania. I think you're going to see a few rematches thrown in there. But I really don't have much of a problem with WrestleMania Backlash, you know?
It's goofy. Why not just continue to call it Backlash? I guess. I mean, I understand the thought process behind it, but I mean, it's like every other goofy name of a pay-per-view, like Great Balls of Fire. Is it going to be WrestleMania Great Balls of Fire?
Mark Anderson agrees too, by the way. But I do like this one, WrestleMania Breakfast Soup Raw. I kind of like that. This is this is the post WrestleMania. This is the Raw after This is the Breakfast Soup Raw after Mania, I guess, if you want to intertwine the two. So, yeah. Crazy Cruiserweight. Yeah. I should have been a little bit clearer yesterday when Cesaro was with the faction. First, they had the League of Nations, and when they created the second faction, I said it's like the League of Urinations because all these international factions they were doing at the time, I was taking a pee. But but he does bring up a good question because this is a match. I don't think they're going right to Big E versus Roman, because Big E's now got to deal with Captain Crunch, Yabba Dabba Kato, which I actually like. I'm very glad that they found a good role for him. But what do you think in the meantime, before you get the Big E versus Roman Reigns feud, what do you think about them having Cesaro feud with Roman Reigns? You like it? You think it's possible?
I mean, it is possible. I would like... I don't know where I want to go with Roman Reigns right now. I'm really lost because it was such a decisive victory at WrestleMania. I don't know if you can have either of those guys come back. And as far as where we can go with Roman Reigns, I don't know. DT. I really don't know. I can't even speculate on ideas because I think that he literally is at the top of the heap right now and there's nobody even close. Unless they bring something back, like a Brock. But why would they have brought back Brock for Mania? So...
Well, the thing is, I think Cesaro and Seth Rollins has got to continue a little bit more. They tore the house down the night one. I would have loved to have seen them go another 5 or 10 minutes. I think you have a return match of Cesaro versus Rollins at Backlash, WrestleMania Backlash. Roman Reigns, unless WWE dares to try to do a three-way again with some added stipulation, that could very well happen too. Maybe they'll just lock all three of them inside a steel cage. I don't know. But I think Edge versus Daniel Bryan is a must. Each one ruined each other's opportunity to defeat Roman Reigns for the title. So, it's going to be interesting to see what they do Friday. I wonder if somebody from NXT is going to go to SmackDown. I mean, I know there's some rumors about Adam Cole and others. I don't know yet. There's still
Adam Cole versus Roman Reigns?
No, I don't want to see that. But there's rumors of some names possibly jumping up to Raw. You know what? I like that one, Michael Gonzalez. Samoa Joe. You know what? I would even tease Samoa Joe on commentary for SmackDown, and then have Roman Reigns confront Samoa Joe and then attack him. And that gets Samoa Joe right back out of the commentators' table, and that could explain a match for WrestleMania Backlash. I could see that. I like that. Mr. Mike, I think that's what you do with Roman right now. I don't think anybody would object to that.
No, it's a decent idea.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. By the way, Edwin G wanted me to send you a shout-out. And Edwin... As I always say, thank you for your service, my friend. Thank you.
Appreciate that, sir.
Want to shout out Joe Punches as well. Joe Punches got the vaccine this morning. His lady goes tomorrow. Feels good so far. Let that outside coating wear off in about 6 more hours and see how you feel. Just take Tylenols, stay hydrated, take some vitamins, and, you get a little... My fiance got the second shot on Saturday. And it was funny because she got it at like 5:45 p.m. And I'm sitting in my car and I'm like, WrestleMania is going to start and then thank God she was done by 6. So we got back in just in time for Mania. But she had a little fever yesterday. She was a little shangada, but today she's pretty much back to normal. So, but good, Joe. Very happy for you, seriously. VJ says Mish hasn't been the same since Fire and Desire ended.
Okay.
Fire and Desire. What did you think about what they did tonight with Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke getting themselves counted out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the prelude to that when they just turned around and beat the shit out of Nia, when she wasn't expecting it. Just a little odd. It felt very heel-like, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they're going to go with that. I don't see much for it, but who knows?
It baffles the shit out of me because if they're trying to tease a little bit of an attitude change, I think what WWE really needs to understand, and this is no disrespect intended for either woman in that team, but they could be baby faces, they could be heels, they could be tweeners, they could be straight, gay, white, black, they could be male, female, but at the end of the day, they're still wrestling like Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose.
Right.
All right. You're not going to turn them heel. So suddenly, they're bad and they're bad. You know what I mean? Like, at least right now when they're bad, you kind of root for them because they're baby faces and everything. But, it's not like they're going to swallow some magic pill and they're going to turn heel and then have this unbelievable arsenal that we've never seen before. It's fucking Dana Brooke. It's Dana Brooke. What are you going to do? I thought it was so asinine.
There's not much to them. I mean, they're a write-off tag team to begin with. I'm sorry. Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose are not the future of wrestling. They're not the future of the tag team division. And if that's the direction that WWE sees them, then so be it. I'm not going to be a guy that tunes in and forks over my cash in order to watch them. So, but at this point, most of the tag team division for women's wrestling is pretty bad anyways. There's a couple of little, blips on the radar, but for the most part, who's dominant besides Nia and Shayna?
Yeah.
Look, Nina and Natalya did a great job, and they very much surprised me with such a strong showing at Mania. But
I enjoyed it.
But before night 2, they weren't even my pick. I picked Naomi and Lana because I thought they were going to complete the Nia Jax storyline. The Nia and Lana fucking feud. You know what I mean? Like, look, there was nobody on that roster that they had on that tag team turmoil that I was definitively sitting there going, those are the girls that are going to win it. There's nobody on the roster. Yeah.
I agree. I picked Tamina and Natty, but I also picked them to win the belts too because, again, I've said this 1,000 times before. I'm not one of those that you give a belt to someone because of longevity. But you look at Tamina's career, and it hasn't been dismal. Obviously, the character has never been strong, but she obviously has a fan base, and she got cheered quite a bit at WrestleMania. And it wasn't simply because they were facing Nia and Shayna. I think a lot of fans want a reason. And let me tell you something. I did not forget last year when they did the Money in the Bank match in Stamford, Connecticut, and Tamina was in that ladder match. I remember a lot of people not only rooting for Tamina, but thinking that Tamina was finally going to win and get the briefcase. And it didn't happen. And she was winning matches leading up to that, giving you the suspension of disbelief that Tamina's on a roll. So when you look back at it and you say, wow, WWE's never given her a title. Never.
Yeah, they did.
What?
They gave her the 24/7 title.
Oh, well, Peter Rosenberg is won a champion too. I don't count that. But, I think Tamina should be on the lineage of history as far as women's champions.
Sure.
I think so. You know what? Chris Silver has got a great idea. Drew could team up with Cedric and Shelton. Now, you know what? That's not a bad idea because now you can have the 6-man. You could have Lashley, T-Bar+Mace versus Cedric, Shelton, and Drew. I like that. But, man, that's that's a dominating trio. Lashley, T-Bar, and Mace. Is it just me, Mish? But almost overnight, and I know it's not overnight, but without us really focusing on it, and I know you and I have had this talk about big men many times over the last year or so, but when you take a step back for a minute, is this the biggest roster they've ever had as far as big men? Because I know back in the day you had the one-man gang and King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd, and you could go on and on and on. But you think about it now, the Viking Raiders, T-Bar and Mace, Otis, you have Omos, Yabba Dabba Kato. I mean, and there's names I'm leaving out. I really cannot remember since maybe
Braun.
the late 80s having giants, this many giants on TV.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing to have a lot more of the big men back in the company, because I think, a lot of the views of these smaller guys coming up to the main roster, that everybody can be a wrestler, kind of takes away from the specialness, I guess you want to say, of seeing these larger than life people. And the whole point is, like, even yesterday you saw people saying, or the other day, people saying, oh my gosh, almost as, Giant Gonzalez, almost is just like, Great Khali. And it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to immediately just, categorize these guys as just big lumbering giants without talent until we actually give them some time. And as a matter of fact, almost was very impressive in the ring, not just physically, but even the fact that he knew the charisma. He had this giant smile on his face, and the fact that he could just go to stone was amazing. Like, it's very much a talent that he can just turn that on and off. Kind of scary too. So there is an idea that a lot of these bigger guys might lead to better matches, hopefully. Knock on wood.
I didn't even mention Braun, Lashley, Drew. They would be considered giants also, arguably.
Absolutely.
Then if Brock comes back also, those are some big men. So, yeah, that's a pretty damn good idea, Chris. He also says they could book Alexa and The Fiend at WrestleMania Backlash. I don't want to see that. Because WWE is not going to allow, there's going to be hocus pocus stuff. I mean, as long as we don't have live fans in attendance back, you're going to see pre-recorded special effects splice. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. They might as well milk it as much as they possibly can, for now. But I don't really want to see that.
Right.
Bray Wyatt tonight, we had Alexa's Playground, but we had the Firefly Funhouse too. And Bray Wyatt acting like a changed man, and he's, kissing puppets, and he's happy, and I don't know where this leads, because when he was a heel, he was doing the Wyatt gym and working out, and he was doing all this stuff, but he was still a heel, and everybody was into it. Yeah. Now, trying to act like a changed person, we're going to have a good Fiend? I really don't want to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, what is he going to say? Let me in. Please?
Please.
Seriously. I mean, what are you going to... Let me in. Please? Oh, fuck that. No. Liam Savage, what's going on, my friend? Hope everything is doing well. Kurt Wright wants to know, do we see Seth Rollins turning babyface anytime soon?
I'm not looking forward to that, honestly. If that is a plan for WWE, I'm not on board. And besides, I think that he plays a better sniveling heel. I think people enjoy booing Seth. The people that really don't like Seth, there's that contingent as well. But for the most part, people booing Seth it's cathartic at this point, DT. It's fun to boo Seth. It's fun to see him on the screen and get his ass kicked. It's fun to see him fail, But no, putting him as a babyface, I just don't see it being believable.
I'm enjoying Seth right now as a heel. This Seth, I mean, I love his suits. I would never be able to wear them, but I love his suits. I love the trolling. I love where he's still calling himself a god, but he's dressing like a pimp, sort of. Right. I mean, it's almost like It reminds me of these preachers, you know, the what do they call televangelists? Yeah. It's no longer a god. He's almost like a televangelist. I personally think they should go the route that he should be more like a televangelist. I'm enjoying Seth right now. I think even if Becky Lynch is back on TV, you don't have to name drop that they're together with child and everything like that. We don't need that brought up again. I don't think they interact on TV anytime soon. I say leave Seth alone. Leave him alone. I kind of like that. Liam thought the WrestleMania main event was great. I don't know which one you're talking about. I think he's talking about the triple threat, though. He didn't see Raw yet, but every triple threat was a no DQ. Yeah, triple threats, pretty much anything goes. Yeah. You don't have DQs in triple threats. Anybody could pin anyone. You could brawl outside the ring. But I do remember not too long ago a triple threat match ending in a DQ. I don't remember what match it was. I don't remember if it was a pay-per-view, a TV, but I do remember a triple threat match ending in a DQ. And people like, wait, why is this ending in a disqualification? Oh.
What was it?
No, not that. But tonight we had the return once again. The fucking roll-up. I'm going to call it the fruit roll-up from now on. Haven't I told you all that when they want someone to lose, that you don't expect to lose, that they don't eat the finisher, they do the roll-up instead, the inside cradle? What does Miz do? He rolls up Damian Priest, yes, in his underwear, and he's got his foot on the ropes, and Maurice is helping him. By the way, Maurice was back because obviously Mr. and Mrs. is airing on the USA Network. But yeah, this tonight is the quintessential example of what I've been talking about with AEW, NXT, and WWE. Doesn't happen as much in MLW or Impact yet, but they have gone on this kick. And for anybody that's new to the show here, once I mention this, you'll start paying attention and be like, son of a bitch. What they got into this obsession of doing is when they want a certain person or team to lose, but they have this mentality that if they lose by being rolled up inside cradle, that it's like a split second, because as soon as the 3 count, they kick out and it's a little too late. So it just doesn't feel like they're unconscious or laid out or succumb to someone's finisher. And that's why, like, I brought up the Young Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz. They didn't want Santana and Ortiz to eat the Young Bucks finisher. So what do? Inside cradle. We have had so many WWE matches where you have someone eat a pin that you don't expect. And how do they lose? Inside cradle. 9 times out of 10, you will see the bullshit. Well, I'm calling from now on the fruit roll-up. That's what we got tonight with Damian Priest. People, after the match was over, and you and I like Miz and Morrison, but after the match, people like, why did Damian lose tonight? What was the purpose? I mean, and they did the fruit roll-up.
Honestly, I thought this was good. It was a handicap match to begin with. Why would it have made any sense for Damian Priest to go over Miz Morrison? And I like all 3 of these guys. I like the idea that they're continuing this feud. Yeah, you're right about the roll-up, but at the same time, it was such an excessive roll-up that it's really different than to just consider it's a cradle. I mean, the guy was completely deep-handsed. He was draped over the top rope, and Maurice is hanging onto his feet. Like, it's not just like, oh, you got him in the ring, now we're going to go on to the next. No, it was an actual he executed a very complicated version of the cradle without pants. So I think overall it was an okay segment. I thought it was an okay step up. It makes Damian Priest still look strong because it took that level of underhandedness for Miz to take the win on this.
Okay.
So there's going to be a rematch.
Fair enough.
More to this feud, you know.
Okay. Fair enough. And Liam Savage, thank you for the kind words, my friend. Thank you. Ryan Shonchek, I'm getting the name down. He was the guy that said, if you if you need, he said it, you need to keep feeding people a Roman. Why not Cesaro be well received? Yes, you brought it up yesterday too. I want to see Cesaro, and we brought it up yesterday a little bit. I want to see him get in the main event picture, but I want the perception is that he stays there. We thought they were doing that with Nakamura.
Right.
You know, it's one thing to get a title shot and to get in the main event. It's another thing to stay there. And Daniel Bryan is a perfect example of someone who stood there, even though if you paid attention for the last 9 months of Daniel Bryan in the ring, he lost matches more than he won. But once he got to that main event status, never really felt like that he was diminished. Like you felt that WWE maybe wasn't doing right with him, but at any moment could get thrown into that main event. Nakamura, we were holding out hope in January, early January, that WWE is finally going to put some serious weight behind this guy. Not necessarily a title, but put some, as soon as the Royal Rumble ended, exactly what we feared. Down, 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 down. Smoke and mirrors.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go too far away from this. The idea of Roman being the one to take him to the main event, why can't Seth and Cesaro? Why can't Seth take Cesaro to the main event? Because let's be honest, Seth is always hovering around the main event himself. And I understand that he doesn't have the title, but do you think a longer feud between Cesaro and Seth Rollins will kind of make him a little bit more viable as a main event character? Or is it not until he faces Roman that people will buy into him as a main event guy?
Well, please, everyone, don't get mad at me. I'm not comparing Cesaro's career to Orange Cassidy. But if anybody that follows AEW sees it, you could see exactly what they did with Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho. They, by having Orange Cassidy get multiple wins from Chris Jericho, the impression is that Orange Cassidy is now on this level.
Value rise, right?
You know, right. And I like Orange Cassidy. He's, you know, one of their brighter talents for the future. But there's nothing that makes me think suddenly he's main event status.
On a flip side, though, and on that exact same note, Brian Cage and Sting, Brian Cage is elevated, in my opinion. Brian Cage
AEW, man, with those big guys.
Saying, but if you want to talk AEW versus AEW, the way that they do things, you're right. Orange Cassidy, his value hasn't gone up, but then you look at somebody like Brian Cage, and I think that he's far more accessible to people. I think people will get him a lot higher even after his match with Sting. So what would the case be with a guy like Cesaro? Do we look at him like an Orange Cassidy, or can you actually look at him and think that his matches, or if he has a really good feud, which he will because Cesaro and Seth click together, do you think he might walk out of that looking like a Brian Cage per se? You know,
could it, but you know what a lot of people always need to remember, and you know, not trying to talk down on anybody, but you got to remember at the end of the day, this is entertainment.
Sure.
Period. So when people get angry, like tonight, of this woman making her return and her talking about that she doesn't steal opportunities, she is the opportunity, and people visibly losing their shit on social media with hatred, saying you're a fucking liar and this and that. I hate to break it, or I should say it like this. I hate to remind people out there, but every time Charlotte goes out there and says those things and then attacks Rhea Ripley and then attacks Asuka and leaves them laying and is now put in the three-way as mission I called for the last couple of weeks was going to happen, remember something, everybody. Remember Brock Lesnar. You had these same people hating Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar never showed up for TV, never defended the title. Guy stays home. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I laughed my ass off when I'm reading this because I'm saying to myself, and you people remember, I'm like, what do people think? Brock Lesnar just shows up for Raw and Vince says, no, go home. We don't need you. And then Brock Lesnar, because he hasn't been on TV for a month, he shows up unannounced. Hey, this is on me. Here's a freebie. You know, everything that Charlotte does is not a shoot. WWE puts her out there. WWE puts her in the matches. WWE has her cut those promos. WWE has her say the bullet points. These people losing their shit tonight because Charlotte is right back out there. I mean, where have you been for the last 5 years? Seriously, I don't understand the mentality of some people unless they do that, like I said, intentionally to get attention. You want to get angry at WWE about that, fine. But to turn around and take it out on Charlotte that she is doing something against what WWE's intentions are, that she's throwing herself back out there. What are these people smoking? You know, where am I wrong with that?
The consensus of people like that believe that Charlotte is using her clout and her old man's clout in order to get whatever she wants. I think there's a lot of people that look at Charlotte's run right now and look at Charlotte's position in the company, the Triple H days of terror, where Triple H won everything, held the title whenever the hell he wanted to, and even when he lost the title, it was only for a little bit until he came back to get it.
Right,
I think a lot of people put that unfairly on Charlotte, and I think that that's where a lot of that hate and animosity comes from.
But when hold on.
You have paperwork?
No, I just happened. This is actually has to do with my taxes, but so you mean to tell me that when Triple H showed up for Raw and saw the match board and it said Mankind to go over on Triple H, that Triple H did that? I mean, as much as we were sick of the Triple H show, it's WWE. It was the one that insisted on putting him in that spot. Roman Reigns for 4.5 years, 5 years. I mean, people seem to forget about how WWE shoved that guy down everybody's throats, that a majority of people out there couldn't stand him. Charlotte is no different than Roman Reigns for the first 5 years on TV. All right, WWE saw money in the guy, thought he would be the next John Cena that I said back in the day, and my former co-host and everybody else said, what are you talking about? He doesn't look like Cena. He doesn't wrestle like Cena. Now people understand what I meant. You know, at the time, I don't blame anybody for not understanding it because you didn't really see it coming. Just had that feeling that he had the look. He's got a great background. No controversial history. I think maybe one DWI. But for the most part, Roman Reigns is the next role model over John Cena back in the day. And people couldn't stand it. Charlotte is not going out there. You stay in catering. Fuck you, I'm a Flair. Woo! And she goes out and cuts the promo anyway? Come on. I know it's not you, but...
No, and I know it's not on me. I'm just saying, you have to look at it from a logical point that they're making, and it's not like Charlotte, like that example you just gave, where Charlotte's telling people go fuck themselves and stay in catering. I love think it. That people. I know, but I don't think that the majority of people think it like that. They think it's more political. I think a lot of people feel that Charlotte is being political in order to keep herself out there, whether people want to see her or not. And I think that that's the problem that we saw before with Seth, where people said that that was political. With Roman, we saw that people said that that was political with John Cena, et cetera, et cetera. There are other guys on this list that have been accused of being political behind the scenes in order to get themselves out there, even when all you hear is a majority of jeers and boos, even when they're supposed to be a babyface. Now, when it comes to Charlotte, I like Charlotte's work. I've always liked Charlotte's work. She's an impressive promo. I like her in the ring. She's got lady balls. Like, there's nothing wrong with Charlotte out there to me. But I absolutely understand why people are sick and tired of seeing her on screen. And they always put her in positions of almost invulnerability. Like, her coming out there tonight, for whatever reason, she's invincible. She took out both champions. She took out last night's champion and today's champion by herself, out of nowhere. So I understand the way that they're going to build up the story because they're obviously going to bridge the gap between Rhea and Charlotte and what happened with that in summer of last year. But at the same time, it's like they bring her out and they just make her Super Cena. And I understand why people are just sick of her for that.
I agree. You know what you got to do? You got to look at Charlotte's ass and then look at that. That's kind of like MTV Catfish. You know, like somebody goes on that MTV or they go online, hey, you know, I'm this real sexy person, this and that, and then, oh, let me see a picture of you. And then when you see him in person, you get this instead. Oh, man. Lilly should be a podcaster. But I do not blame Charlotte, man. Charlotte is the #1 woman in wrestling. As much as people are sick of the push, get angry at WWE. Don't get angry at her, because if it was you, me, Mish, any of you out there, and we were working in a job and we kept getting big opportunities, getting this, getting that, you know, and you're working your ass off to get it, there's a lot of people that would be very jealous of you, very angry with you, that would say, man, if they would just give me the opportunity, I could show that I could be just as good as Charlotte. I understand why people get upset at that. But guess what? Charlotte should not take a step back and say, all right, I'll take a step back this year and let someone else have the spotlight, because tomorrow is never guaranteed. And you know what I think is unfair? Did you see that video of Sasha Banks after Bianca won the belt when she was crouched down against the ringside area?
Yes, I did.
She
was smiling. She was happy. I mean, it was generally, even though, and here was the contention on this, what is Sasha, 0-6 at Mania or something like that? Even though Sasha's been to all these Manias and she's never really cinched in the win, she was still really genuinely happy for Bianca Belair. And that's how you know that it means something to her to have a great match like that. Because at the end of the day, yes, Bianca Belair is the new champion, and it was a great feud, but I think people will remember how good the feud was even over who won or lost that match, other than the fact that it was such a big moment for Belair. But I think overall, Sasha was genuinely happy. I didn't think that she had one iota of fakeness about that. I think she wanted Belair to have a fantastic WrestleMania to win. We also know that Sasha is going on to do some more filming for the next season of Mandalorian, so we know she's happy with that too. I think it was a win-win all around, and you're right. Looking at that picture and stuff like that was very important.
Yeah,
you know,
it was beautiful. It was beautiful. By the way, just random cool photo I thought some of you would actually like to see. This was WrestleMania also. Thought it was a nice photo. I know a lot of you out there can't stand Nia Jax. I have said many times I am a big fan of hers. Yeah, some of that in-ring work that, you know, she's done, you know, there's no excuse for the sloppiness. I think she's actually worked really hard. I tell you the truth, I'm a little surprised people are not jumping down at Shayna Baszler. Do you notice she's getting no backlash whatsoever? And I don't want her to get backlash, but she knocked Asuka's tooth out.
Yeah.
And then and we talked about it, you know, yesterday, how, man, that knee to Natty's mouth looked pretty damn good. Natty revealed she didn't lose any teeth, but, you know, she got busted up pretty good from it. Right. So why no focus on Shayna Baszler? Because she's actually injured, you know, a few people, not just two. No mention of anybody having any issue with Shayna Baszler. I love Shayna Baszler. I wish she trust me, there's about 50 people I'd love for her to knee in the mouth, you know, but right. People seem to just let that go. Like it's not a big deal.
She's also a favorite. She's also untested. She's also a favorite. She's a hopeful. You know, she's one of the few that have come up from NXT and have not immediately been buried or sent away, you know, or gotten injured, you know, knock on wood and stuff like that. So Shayna's still a conundrum because I think most people don't even want Shayna with Nia. I love
the team now.
I get it. No, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I think there's still a very large contingent of people that want Shayna by herself and away from Nia. So
I think they're great as a team right now, and there's nobody right now, as weird as it sounds, I would have been fine with Natty and Tamina winning the belts. Right. I actually would have enjoyed it. I actually put it as a prediction, and I even said I don't think they're going to win, but I'm going to do it just to root for them. They didn't get it. I think there's a rematch coming, though. They get after the match they had at Mania, which was pretty damn good. I think a rematch should happen. Maybe it happens on SmackDown. I don't know. And who knows? Maybe they're setting up something down the line where Natty and Tamina win the belts, and then they want to make Dana and Mandy Rose be a little bit bitchy, and then maybe that's because I don't know. It's just the tag team division for the WWE women, not NXT, but the main roster is a mess. And Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler seem to be the two that kind of impressed me more than anybody else. The Riot Squad is okay, but Liv Morgan doesn't put it over the top for me. Lacey Evans, look, she's pregnant with child. Congrats, God bless to her.
She's not going to be back for a while.
Yeah,
just
no.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Anyway, just two more super chats, and then we'll just fill in the rest of the blanks with Raw tonight, and then we'll call it a night because I know we've already run over an hour tonight. Chris thinks that we'll see Lashley versus Lesnar at SummerSlam. Look, I think Wade Keller, I'm not sure. I don't follow him. I don't care about him, but a few people DM'd me tonight and said Wade Keller said that Brock Lesnar is backstage at WWE. I'm not so sure about that, unless maybe, like you said earlier, could it be that he shows up on SmackDown? That would be interesting.
It would be interesting. It would be also unexpected because most people expected Brock Lesnar to be here before Mania. So, I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
Imagine if he showed up at SmackDown and Paul Heyman doesn't expect him there, and you have Paul Heyman with the look on his face like, right. Roman tries to tell, hey, Paul, you got to take care of this problem, and Paul Heyman is like torn between the two. I could see that happening. Yeah. I could see that happening. And remember, didn't storyline Brock Lesnar quit SmackDown and then showed up on Raw? So he could still end up facing Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam. So
very true.
Yeah, we'll see. Joe Punches loves Asuka, loves Rhea, but their chemistry seems off. Yeah. I guess we could start focusing on Raw tonight. We don't have to do the matches in order, but I was disappointed with Rhea Ripley and Asuka yesterday. I was disappointed again today. And you and I sort of touched on this 3 weeks ago. I know we touched on it last Tuesday on Patreon. I think the number one problem with Rhea Ripley the last couple of weeks is WWE made her be Charlotte for this WrestleMania match and the night after. Instead of letting Rhea Ripley be the Rhea Ripley character that everybody enjoyed, and which is herself amped up 1,000 times, they forced her to be this ruthless, selfish heel that shows up and wants a title right away and to beat down the Asuka, and it felt like that was supposed to be Charlotte. And right. Because Charlotte wasn't going to be a Mania, all right, Rhea, you're going to do what Charlotte was supposed to do. And to me, Rhea Ripley does not feel comfortable in this role. It looked like she was reading cue cards tonight. I don't think Rhea Ripley is comfortable being in this role that she's in. Now, maybe with Charlotte back, they will quickly bring Rhea back to Rhea Ripley. Then this, Charlotte extension. I don't know. What do you feel about Rhea and Asuka today? I thought the match fell flat, even though, yes, Charlotte caused the no contest, but still.
It was a flat match. match. It's a flat match, and you do have a point. You know, the match between Asuka and Rhea felt like it was supposed to be more about Asuka and Charlotte. The other thing, too, is that, you know, since Rhea's been back, she's talking about brutality, this, and, you know, I mean, I know that that's been her thing in NXT for a while, and there was something to that. But there was really no brutality I saw at Mania. For a person that's not, well, I mean, it's not fair to say that this is her first impression, but for a person that's supposed to be shaking up the entire division by her appearance, by her advancement, and by her initially just taking the title off of Asuka, very flat. You're right. It landed very flat. So I'm kind of hoping that her back and forth with Charlotte is going to irk out some of that, because there's a lot of people that want to see Rhea kick the shit out of Charlotte. And even though Rhea has the title, they still want to see her kick the shit out of Charlotte, because there's history there. There's unfinished history there, and there's a lot of fans that felt that, you know, Charlotte winning the title back down in NXT was unfair. And I can understand that. So hopefully she gets a chance to kind of spread her wings and do a little bit more, especially with both of these women. I'm kind of hoping that now with Charlotte there to kind of complete the circuit, we're going to have a better caliber of match coming out of this.
I'm smiling because speaking of kicking the shit and spreading wings, I thought this was hilarious today.
Oh,
Riddle getting his ass handed to him from Bobby Lashley. Yes, somebody photoshopped the birds, like all around his head, like he's seeing birds. That is one of the most awful things, you know, putting these graphics on the screen. They got to stop that shit. They got to stop that quickly. But I kind of enjoyed this a little bit because I don't know if anybody noticed, but for a brief few seconds, Matt Riddle had some unbelievable memory. He's name dropping dates in March. Well, Lashley, you said this on March 9th, and whatever it was. And I'm saying to myself, oh, that is to basically offset him forgetting his lines with Asuka. But he wanted to challenge Lashley and provoked, and Lashley nailed him on his ass. They had a decent match, but in the end, you know, there was no chance whatsoever. And that was Riddle tonight after his match with Bobby Lashley. Thought that match was okay.
Yeah, it was fine, dude.
But yeah,
that's the way it was supposed to be. You know,
those bird things are ridiculous, awful, absolutely awful. As we said earlier, we had the return of the Viking Raiders. You know, it was funny because, you know, I was paying close attention to Adnan Burke early on, and he was like, you know, the energy, like the Viking Raiders, like they just look so pumped in it. And it was at a point where they were just like looking at each other and just smirking. It was just the commentator, you could tell he's reading from a sheet. Some of the things he was saying, it didn't match the moments that were happening. I'm happy the Viking Raiders are back. Here, 2 more big men. We didn't even say before. 2 more giants. I just don't like the fact that Shelton and Cedric, it's like WWE is forcing, like everybody that's bitching about the Hurt Business still splitting up. This is like WWE say, okay, keep talking about it. Keep talking about it. You know, we'll keep burying them even further. Because to me tonight, no chance whatsoever. They got squashed by the Viking Raiders. What do you think about them being back?
I mean, good for them. We talked a little bit about it at the top of the show. I think it's perfectly fine that they're back. They're probably going to be comedy characters. I'm okay with that. You know, I don't want to sit there and try and take them seriously. They had fun with the Profits, so you know, let's keep going with them being comedy characters and B characters. There's nothing wrong with guys that are out there to like win a match or two, but when the chips are down, they're there to fill in the gaps, and I think that that's what the Viking Raiders are there for. So
yeah. We had Ms. TV, Maurice being there, just to hype up Mr. and Mrs. on the USA Network. Yes. Interrupted by Damian Priest, and I think it's worth mentioning one more time. Absolutely loved. You and I talked about it for 2+ months that everything we were hearing coming out of Florida is that, yo, you have no idea how serious Bad Bunny is taking this WrestleMania. That this guy is working 4 or 5 hours a day, running the ropes 40 times, taking crazy ass bumps, just everything. And you saw the outcome yesterday. Props to Drew Gulak, props to Adam Pearce. Those two, I think, were probably the two biggest, helping him. Miz and Morrison as well. It pretty much is official now that Bad Bunny is done. Might see him making a cameo once in a blue moon, but for the most part now, and I didn't even realize when Triple H gave him the box yesterday, I didn't even realize the skull on the microphone thing. I think that'd be pretty fucking sweet if Bad Bunny actually performs with that microphone. Don't be surprised if he does.
Oh, he absolutely will. Absolutely, especially being a lifelong fan. That was definitely a little professionalism nod from Triple H to Bad Bunny. And then that they threw it up on the screen with his dates. I thought that was pretty classy. So you don't think that Bad Bunny might do the Poppy tour where, he comes back a little bit like two times a year or something like that? You don't think that he could do that?
It could happen. I think Bad Bunny could perform, I don't know about actually getting in the ring again.
I don't ring again, but I mean, just even coming back and doing a song or something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. I can see that. It's thank you, Sam. What the hell did I say? It's Ms. and Mrs. Did I say Mr. and Mrs.? Yeah. That's freaking generic. Mr. and Mrs. That's like a questionnaire. Mr. and Mrs. Ms. and Mrs. Right. My mistake. But it was nice to see him out east today. She's gorgeous. I mean, I think she's funny. I mean, I don't watch the reality shows, but I do check out. Good. I watch a little of the Ms. and Mrs. I got it right, Sam. She comes off extremely conceited, but hey, you look like that, you live like that. I guess you have the right to back that up.
Oh, I don't see conceit on that woman at all. You watch the show,
yeah,
and when you see her mother, Marjo,
she's very down to earth and cool.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Her mother is a nutcase, and I mean that in the most friendly, nicest way possible. Like she's throwing off clothes and just doing, she is a very animated woman, and that's her mother. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of Marjo in Maurice, and it's very funny, and they glow around each other too, which is something that I don't think nobody really talks about, because I mean there's couples in WWE and stuff like that, but every time, for as long as that they've been together, Miz and Maurice glow around each other, and I think that that's kind of adorable, and that's also a reason why Miz always seems to perform better when he's around his wife. Don't get me wrong, Johnny Drip and fucking Miz do great together, and obviously that's his boy in real life, and they play off each other very well. But Maurice takes Miz to a different level. I won't ever forget when they went in hard on fucking Nikki and John Cena with those promos at WrestleMania, and then they cut this shit, and Maurice just cut this scathing "fuck you" promo to John Cena and Nikki Bella, and it was great.
They did, dressed in amateur, yeah.
They play very well off of each other, and I'm kind of hoping that if Maurice gets to a point where she's a little bit more comfortable coming around the ring, even if she's just his valet, I think that they can do something special with that again.
Yeah. Now, guys, I'm just curious. I have right now as the picture for this episode, I have this, because it just reminded me of Mars Attacks yesterday. But my question, everyone out there, is for YouTube, for the preview. Should I leave it with the Alexa and Mars Attacks, or should I put the Braziers one instead? Because it did look kind of funny, because it does look a little bit adult-oriented. And yes, Miz is obviously wearing underwear, but if anyone out there has ever worn underwear knows that there is a vent for fresh air in the front. So you could wear underwear and still, do certain things. So I'm curious, guys and gals that are live, which one should I keep as the preview? Alexa or Braziers or whatever? I'm curious. Now, I also Mish, I want to ask you this. I almost said Miz. I know it's unfair to compare the two, but I think it's starting to catch on as a huge, huge debate. Up to this point, Pat McAfee or Bad Bunny?
Bad Bunny. Don't get me wrong. Pat McAfee was amazing out there. And the difference is Pat McAfee had a little bit more time. Well, I don't know. I think they both had a good time to build. You know, when Bad Bunny had the 24/7 championship, I really wasn't feeling that too much. And it's kind of funny because of him getting that 24/7 championship. I immediately personally thought, I'm like, he's going to be a throwaway celebrity taking his moment in the sun, and that's it. I think the reason I would pick Bad Bunny was because Pat McAfee is at least an athlete. Pat McAfee is also a broadcaster and a host. So when you think of Pat McAfee as being a charismatic guy who's athletic and knows his body and can do some athletic things and talk shit, it's no surprise. Bad Bunny's a singer. Bad Bunny is not a direct athlete. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't in trainings over the years and stuff like that. So for him to come out and give the performance he did, I think that there was a lot of people that were absolutely floored by the amount of respect and training that this guy went to in order to make it look good. And he did. He really, really did. I think that it was more of the shock of the system of how well he did. Like I said, not taking anything away from McAfee. McAfee has a background that screams, I would be a good wrestler. But Bad Bunny, you didn't expect it. And even though he was doing well with Damian Priest, and he had good camaraderie with them, and he threw the punch on the Miz and everything else like that, it still didn't really let you even get a glimpse as to what he was capable of. I'll be honest, when he started the match, I thought that, I'm like, wait a minute, isn't Bad Bunny supposed to be the cleanup guy? Isn't he supposed to be on the outside rope and Damian Priest is going to be the guy wrestling the match? I was floored. It threw me off. I did not expect Bad Bunny to be in the ring as long as he was. And I was pleasantly surprised.
He nailed it.
I wish more celebrities in WWE were like that. Logan Paul. So,
well, you know what? I'll tell you something about Logan Paul. But before you do that, just very quickly. Alexa, turn on my porn. That's for kid gloves. My apologies, kid gloves. Every time I say Bliss's name, his Amazon device is going off. So, yeah, my apologies. That happens in my house, too, when we're watching Raw and they say Bliss's name and then boop. So if everyone out there that has Amazon, units right now, my apologies if I say, Alexa, turn off my electricity now. Alexa, turn off my computer. Alexa, put on Playboy.
Okay,
Alexa,
Google,
call my mom and tell her to fuck off. Right now, people's houses are going boop, boop, boop. I don't know that one. I'm kidding. The reason why I put Bad Bunny over Pat McAfee, obviously, he came from a big sports background. I don't know so much for Bad Bunny. He was in a total different world and knocked it out of the park. Pat McAfee deserves a hell of a lot of credit, too. But you know what? I give Logan Paul credit. I don't follow him. I don't like him. I was educated as far as the bullshit that he posted online with a dead person and all that. But I give him credit for one thing that I talked about last week that I hoped would not happen. Machine Gun Kelly. Machine Gun Kelly is the poster child why I hate celebrities doing shit in wrestling. He took the pop-up powerbomb from Kevin Owens and literally 15 minutes later was all over social media to let everybody know that he was fine and this and that because he had too much of an ego to let people think he got his ass kicked.
Right.
Instead of just respecting the wrestling and the business, he had to go and do that. And I despise that guy as a wrestling fan. Logan Paul And he's got a huge ego also, and he's a boxer and all this other shit. But Logan Paul, he did it the right way. He took the stunner, didn't go on social media right after to say he's fine. He just left it alone and acted this morning like he wasn't expecting that as an outcome. I think I have no problem with what Logan Paul did. I don't like him.
Why Logan Paul is not on social media right now. I'm not going to get into it, but trust me, he wasn't doing that for WWE's sake. He is he is going dark right now because of certain accusations against him. That's what I'll say about that.
Well, you know what?
I'm just saying, it's not like he has this great legendary respect for WWE. It's like, no, his lawyers told him to shut the fuck up on social media, so I don't know. Yeah.
Alexa, play Kenny G loud. Oh, man, trying to have a good night tonight. So Miz and Morrison, they do the Miz TV. Damian Priest comes out, little confrontation about yesterday. This leads to a handicap match, and the result, the fruit roll-up. Miz pins Damian Priest. You know, Miz, like you said earlier, Miz and Morrison get their win back. And you know what? I guess in hindsight, for everything they did also for Damian Priest and Bad Bunny at WrestleMania, you know, I think this is probably, the more I think about it, is the right way to go. So, but I thank them for having this match and having this Braziers moment. But something really stupid tonight. I don't know if anybody, I thought this was the running joke. But then I realized it was not meant to be a joke. Jaxson, Ryker, and Elias are taking on the New Day tonight. Oh, and by the way, everyone out there, if you're enjoying the show, I would greatly appreciate if you smash that like button. I'd love to see those likes hit 100 right now. So if you don't mind, while we're talking about something I noticed with New Day's promo tonight, besides the little tribute to DMX, and I'm not going to do the bark because I don't sound like DMX. Jaxson, Ryker, and Elias. They're in the ring. Elias, there's Elias. And he's about to do his thing. And every time he goes to play the instrument, you hear Xavier Woods' trombone. Okay, comedy segment, blah. Not a big deal. New Day hits the ring, and they're cutting a promo about how Jaxson, Ryker, and Elias should be embarrassed of themselves because as a tag team, they got destroyed by one person at WrestleMania, as in Braun Strowman. And as I'm listening, and I invite anyone out there to go back and check this out. As I'm listening to New Day cut this promo, and they're focusing on how two men teamed up and still got beat down by one person, I just kept thinking of Omos. Because Omos single-handedly did them both in. If you go back and you check out New Day's promo to Jaxson, Ryker, and Elias, that very thing happened to New Day. They got their asses handed to them by Omos.
Elias mentioned it, too.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying, like, when they cut the promo, I don't even think that was intended, you know, to be, I think it was to embarrass Elias and Jaxson, Ryker. I'm just saying, like, when you heard that, I'm like, but wait a minute, the same thing happened. And by the way, I mentioned it yesterday. You know, Omos and Dabba-Kato destroyed the New Day.
Right.
Big E also. So all members of New Day got their asses handed to them by Omos and Dabba-Kato. But we have the match today, a lot longer than I expected, but in the end, New Day get the win. Is it safe to say, despite a lot of wrestlers in the business saying that Jaxson, Ryker is going to be a star, is it safe to say that WWE has zero faith in Jaxson, Ryker doing anything in this company. And what is it with Elias that they refuse to give this guy any momentum? To me, it's either two things. He's injured, or WWE just thinks he sucks in the ring. I've watched him have 10-minute matches, and he's pretty good. Why does it seem that Elias, because right now, I don't know how people feel about this, unless you could come up with a different name. To me, Elias might be the top person on the main roster that gets the least amount of in-ring time, loses, and is taken the least serious in the ring than anyone else. I can't think of anyone else who has decent ability, who has a little bit of a following, is young, has got a look, not bad in the ring, and yet still WWE relegates it to the music shit, and they don't even have this guy really doing much. I think the closest is when they did the storyline with Jeff Hardy, and that was the drizzling shits.
Yeah, the Battle of the Bands. I think the problem is that WWE wants to utilize this guy's ability and his character, but only when it surrounds music. And while it's interesting enough to put a musician out there to have him play songs, and once upon a time, Elias was really wowing people with a lot of his in-ring promos / songs, and it was fun. He was fun. With that said, the shoe has dropped, and I think Elias is just filler. Elias and Jaxson Ryker right now, in my opinion, are probably on the same level as the Viking Raiders coming back. That's what they're going to be used for. Their comedy segments, their heel comedy segments. That's what those guys are. And it's kind of sad because you're right. Guys like Elias are very talented in the ring, but WWE hasn't found anybody to utilize that talent with. And so now we're stuck with Jaxson Ryker, Rhodey, and Jeff Jarrett, Elias skits. So,
by the way, Jeff Jarrett is going to debut a podcast on Conrad's channel. I actually think it might actually be pretty interesting to hear him talk about Memphis and stuff like that. But
sure,
since you brought up Jarrett, I had to mention it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you know what? Since we mentioned Jeff Hardy, I know it's sad, but I think we obviously need to mention it. Our condolences to Matt and Jeff Hardy. Their dad passed away over the weekend. Oh, yeah. And also our condolences to Shotzi Blackheart. Her dad passed away, I believe, over the weekend as well.
Oh, really?
I heard Shotzi Blackheart's dad passed, and the Hardys, their dad passed. So our condolences to family, friends of them. So, few of you brought up Aleister Black. I'll tell you why I don't agree with Aleister Black is worse than Elias. Because Aleister Black just disappeared from TV.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not like he was on TV long enough, because this stuff with Elias is going on years. I mean, not consecutive because he had some injuries, but Elias, this treatment in the ring has been going on for years. Aleister Black pretty much came off TV, and I'm holding out hope that Aleister Black shows up in NXT. Originally, I thought him and Karrion Kross would be fire, but now, with Santos Escobar issuing the open challenge tomorrow, now I'm thinking, it'd be pretty cool if Aleister Black answers it, and we have Aleister Black versus Santos Escobar.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I need to see it. Aleister Black is just a guy that needs to be on TV ASAP, post-SAP. Yeah. It's a waste. It's a waste to not have him out there.
Yeah. Crazy Cruiserweight says it was Shotzi's stepdad. Okay. Look, Dad, stepdad, trust me, I have some friends that had stepfathers that I don't know Shotzi's relationship with her real father, but I have people who had stepfathers, and that was the only dad they ever knew. So, whether it's a dad or a stepdad, it's still a parent. I appreciate you clarifying that. No, don't get me wrong, but, still sucks. Still sucks. But, tomorrow is going to be NXT, and it's going to be a little different, because we had a preemption here and there over the last year and a half, but it's going to be different starting this week, having NXT only on Tuesdays and AEW only on Wednesdays. And I brought up what you had mentioned on Patreon last week about how this may end up with lower ratings because you don't have the alternate product to change the channel to when something is not very good. You might put on sports, a movie, go on the net, get preoccupied with something else and never turn wrestling back on for the rest of the night. So they're going to have to, it's going to be interesting this week to see.
It's a simple logic, dude. And I mean, people have told me I've been wrong all week. Of course, they're going to tell me I'm wrong, but it's simple logic. Because if you have another wrestling show to turn to going on at the very same time as another wrestling show, then now you're splitting your viewing time to both shows. And that's how it turns up on the ratings, on the Nielsen's. Now you're right. Now what happens if they just watch a movie? What if Harry Potter's playing for the 75th time in a row? They might get caught up in that, and that's the end of them watching AEW for the night.
Yeah.
I think they're both going to hurt. I think they're both going to hurt from it. I think NXT is going to get a kick in it, and I think AEW is going to get a kick in it. And I think that there's going to be a lot of tricks. There's going to be a lot of things that AEW needs to do in order to keep people in tune to it. But I think at the end of the day, you've lost that crossover fan base, Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to focus on both products and see what they subtly change besides championship title holders. It's got to be a lot more than that. But we'll see. We'll see. I think it's going to be an interesting week. So the wrestling continues. Now, shout out to the family. And tomorrow I will calculate the scores. I know Daniel and two others were kind enough to actually calculate all the scores for the predictions contest. I think 2 or 3 people may have tied for the lead because remember, going to give away that Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan dual signed photo with the authenticity from Warrior Store. So if it ended up with a tie, we will figure out a tiebreaker by Thursday. I might even bring the wheel out and put all your names on the wheel and spin it, and whoever it lands on, but we'll have a winner. And I think whoever tied will not go away empty-handed. So we'll figure that out later this week. So, New Day beat Elias, Jaxson, Ryker. Fun match. We didn't see anything today from AJ Styles and Omos. Are you surprised we didn't even have like a little bit of a celebration, like rub it in people's faces? Like nothing today. It's the Raw after WrestleMania.
Right. No, I'm not sure what they're leading up to with that. But yeah, you're right. I'm surprised there wasn't something, especially considering it was such a big deal because this was their first match and, Omos and AJ won it and now they have gold and it's like, should have been a reason for a celebration. But maybe they're going to save that for next week. Who knows?
Yeah. LJ Impact moved to Thursdays. They're now on Thursdays. In fact, I mentioned it on Friday. Props to Impact Wrestling. They went head-to-head with Night 2 of NXT TakeOver, and they still drew 168,000 viewers. I mean, overall, that number sucks. But the fact that they scored that going up against TakeOver, Impact Wrestling should be really happy with that number last week. Sure. Now, again, this might be Mish's mentality. That Impact Wrestling may have benefited from NXT fans that were tuning in, and maybe they changed the channel for a little while and decided, hey, Impact's on, let me go watch that a little bit. How many of those extra fans would have even watched wrestling Thursday night if Impact was the only choice?
Good point.
So we'll see. What other matches did we get today? We already talked about Miz and Morrison, Damian Priest. Now, the situation with Nia and Shayna versus Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. Nia is watching instant replay a bunch of times of Mandy Rose falling on her ass at Mania, which I thought was funny because Mania was exclusive on Peacock, and Peacock you can't rewind. But she was able to rewind. Mandy Rose sees it. Mandy's like, hey, I could laugh at myself and this and that. But Nia still, gets in her face. Dana Brooke shows up backstage also. And Dana and Mandy Rose basically, I don't want to say attack Nia, but throw her backwards. And it was funny because as Mandy and Dana are looking down at Nia on the floor, Nia kept looking at her hand. Almost like that she just didn't even give a shit about what happened. She just kept looking at her hand. So Dana and Mandy walk away, and you're saying to yourself in storyline, hey, they got a set of balls.
Right.
So the match goes on later. They're in the ring, and at some point, Nia Jax goes to climb in the ring, and it's like the same dopey shit with Lana. Instead of my hole, this time she trips.
Right.
Mandy and Dana are laughing, and then I guess they realize that Nia is about to beat the living shit out of them. So they leave the ring, and they walk backwards up the rampway. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I'm saying to myself, like you said, even if this is a character change,
Right.
that is awful. Storyline purposes, you're in the ring with the tag team champions. And because you're afraid of a beating, you leave the ring and get counted out.
Right.
I thought it was a mess.
Yeah, I think it's a heel thing. I think they might be turning heel. I don't understand the reason why, but I don't understand the reason why they're trying to put them as a viable competitor against Nia and Shayna anyway. So,
yeah. Benjamin.
Time waster.
Yeah. Benjamin, thank you. I have not watched anything on replay yet on Peacock. So apparently you can rewind afterwards, after something is live.
After the replay, you can.
Yeah, after the replay. So, okay, yeah. So,
tried this.
Thank you.
Peacock, on the live stuff, you can't rewind. You can't rewind, you can't pause, you can't fast forward. On the replays, you can. On your phone during the live stream, you can't pause or rewind. Somebody told me that you could. I tried it out myself on a Droid. You cannot. Other things about the WWE Network through Peacock, they've already edited nights 1 and 2 of WrestleMania. So if you're looking for the Hogan boos or specifically the Bella boos, they are gone. They do not exist.
Really?
Yeah, they're already gone. Dude. The Bella boos were taken out immediately. So on the replay, if you watch the replay, those boos will not be in there. Now, I don't know if there's any other boos that were taken out. Somebody told me that the Daniel Bryan boos were removed too. I don't know. I haven't seen that part yet. But I was specifically looking for the Bella clip for later on in the week for Wrestling Soup. And, yeah, it's gone. Wow. The boos are actually gone from the replay. So no surprise that NBC is on top of this shit. So there it is. Why
would NBC care if somebody's cheered or booed?
Because it's WWE's narrative.
Right. Okay. Yeah. This has got to be WWE behind this.
Right. Oh, of course. Of course. Of course. Especially if the rumor is true about the Bella supposedly stepping back in the ring again. I saw that floating around everywhere. I don't even know where the source of that one came from, but I've seen a lot of people bouncing that rumor around that the Bellas are going to be stepping back in the ring. So
let me tell you something. WWE's got to be really careful with that stuff because, we understand with COVID, with the lack of live fans there, that you piped in noise, not just for the aesthetics of us watching at home, but it's also so the wrestlers feel like there's live fans because the wrestlers feed off the energy too. But if
I wanted to throw this in here real quick though, before you make your point, because this kind of reflects to your point. They did not edit Nia talking shit to Tamina and getting censored. They didn't edit that though. Okay. And the censor beep missed. I think she called her a bitch or something like that.
Yeah, you ain't shit. And this is, I run this bitch.
And then it was like, yeah, you ain't shit. Beep. And the beep went after the shit, but they didn't edit that out. So it's very, very deceptive that they would edit out the Bella boos, but they wouldn't edit out the censor beep that missed.
Yeah, they start people start feeling like, okay, we understand with COVID and you're pushing a certain narrative, but now you're intentionally trying to go against how the fans feel about certain people. You make it worse. I'll never forget when they manipulated the video that time. I think it was AJ Styles and Roman Reigns or something. And they manipulated the video to make it seem like the fan was disappointed that Roman lost or something, but it was the actual opposite.
They took the same fan from different points of the night, and they switched. Because initially, when it was aired, he was booing, he was upset, and then they switched the actual on the YouTube replay to, oh, he's cheering him. Look,
they will not get away with that. Trust me. Because that will spread, because people, especially on social media, they want any reason to write that 100-like tweet, that gets attention. Right. So I don't like that. But so we had, as we said earlier, Alexa Bliss, trying to take chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad, trying to explain yesterday that she didn't need the Fiend, yet not explaining why she would want Randy Orton to win. Randy Orton's promo made no sense because Randy Orton said that Alexa Bliss, sorry everyone with the Amazons, that Bliss disappeared, but meanwhile she was on TV earlier in the night. So that seemed a little bit messy, in my opinion. We'll see where this goes with the Lilly character. Obviously it's going to be something. Then the main event today, basically earlier in the night, MVP comes out, cuts a promo, gives props to Drew McIntyre, but in the end, Drew McIntyre went to sleep from the Hurt Lock. Drew comes out, they have a little bit of a confrontation. Drew wants a rematch with Bobby Lashley. And then we get the typical shit. Braun Strowman's music hits, he wants a shot. Randy Orton's music hits, he wants a shot. Then Adam Pearce comes out, and he's like, oh, I know where this is going. So the three of you are going to have a match tonight, and the winner faces Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania Backlash. So tonight we get Orton versus Strowman versus Drew. I'm paying attention to the clock. I know you were setting up for the show, too, and it was like 10:50, and they're doing introductions. I'm like, this match is only going to last 5 minutes? Because now... Right. I'm hoping Brock Lesnar shows up. And like I said, there was some reports that he was backstage. And I'm holding out hope, like, you go off the air with Brock Lesnar at 5 and everyone. I'm happy with that. So I'm looking at the clock. It's 10:54, 10:55, 10:57. No Brock Lesnar. He ain't going to run down the ring. You need the music to hit. You need a couple of minutes. You're not getting an overtime either. So then, out of nowhere, Drew McIntyre gets the win. And now we realize, okay, we're getting a rematch, Drew versus Lashley. Okay, I have no problem with that. But now we're wondering, who's going to attack Drew McIntyre? Lashley's music hits. MVP is on the stage. And Drew McIntyre is attacked by T-Bar and Mace. T-Bar no longer with the makeup, the face paint on his head, but still dressed like Retribution before. Mace looks exactly the same with the makeup. And as, we said at the very beginning of the show, we're pretty much going to end the show almost the same way.
Sorry.
We're fans of both. And it's nice to see them. Hey, look, there's two more big guys that we were talking about before we didn't mention. But I kind of would rather see them be in a tag team and go for the tag titles, which they could still do. But MVP with the grin on his face, like, here's two new members of the Hurt Business.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, there was no reason to split up the Hurt Business if you're going to add these two guys. Obviously, maybe I like these two guys, but not for that.
Maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe they were just hired to do a job. Maybe they're mercenaries now, right? They don't have any. There's no Ali. There's no direction for them. maybe they're kind of like what the Shield was once upon a time, just assassins for hire. Maybe that's what Retribution is now. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I see where you're going with that. Maybe Retribution were trying to impress MVP.
Right.
You know, because when MVP, you know, when his music hit and he came out, then you thought, okay, maybe Brock Lesnar does show up, or maybe Lashley just attacks Drew. But instead you get T-Bar+Mace. So maybe, like you said, maybe next week we find out that they did it to impress.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about it.
You know what? I'd rather believe that than to believe that they're going to be the new Hurt Locker right off the bat. You know what I mean? I like the idea of wrestlers out there that don't care about gold. They just want to hurt people. And that's it. They just want to go out there and make themselves known as badasses.
Yeah.
Why not? There's been wrestlers like that for years. The APA didn't care about gold. They were literally bodyguards. They were security for whoever paid the right price.
Right.
You know, I mean, the Shield. They didn't care about gold when they first came in. They were about taking people out for money. So it's not the first time that we've ever had, and I mean, you can go way back too, you know, where people were actually, I forgot who the feud was, but they've had hitmen. There's been plenty of hitmen in wrestling that have taken somebody out for an amount of money. So the idea of Retribution being this for MVP, I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Crazy Cruiserweight. Mansoor over Tozawa. Angel Garza over Drew Gulak for your main event results for today. My apologies to Ryan Shonchek. He super chatted earlier. He thinks next WrestleMania, if Roman keeps the belt for 20 months, whoever beats him is a made man. Look, there were rumors that Roman Reigns was going to take on The Rock. Obviously, right. COVID put everything in disarray. Do you think that there's a chance, Mish, that Roman Reigns could hold that title until next year?
Another year of development, you know? I mean, earlier today on Wrestling Soup, we talked a little bit about it, and we developed the idea of how the family can expand and the removal of Paul Heyman, you know, because there's just better alternatives for Roman and the family than what they have it as now. And if you build up Roman properly and you start giving him the tools that he needs, I think you can build an amazingly great heel stable, and having somebody like The Rock there could be very impressive. So, yeah.
The more Roman Reigns develops in this character, the less storyline-wise I think he needs Paul Heyman. I think early on, you know, developing the character, because it was so unexpected, I think the pairing was excellent. But when Roman Reigns is cutting his promo in the ring, you know, he really does not need to stand there and sulk and be angry and let Paul do all the talking. If you notice, even when they announced the members of the match yesterday, you don't have Paul Heyman doing a shtick like before. So it could very well end up happening where Paul Heyman does break away, you know, and this is just to get Roman on the right path. But, you know, 20 months is a long time for today's standards. But you know what? I think of Walter, and I think of a few others. Never say never. I mean, it's when you look at the caliber of the WWE roster, you know, we want to see Cesaro. We think Big E versus Roman Reigns is going to be a feud. But at the end of the day, if Roman Reigns ended up on top from both of those feuds, I don't think anybody would have a problem. And you go 2-3 months with a feud like they did with Jey Uso and Kevin Owens, and even Daniel Bryan's led for a few months. You know, you do 2 months with Big E and another month or 2 months with Cesaro, you know, that's another 4 months knocked out of there. And we're into April now, so now you're getting into August, September. So, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see where they go. But do not discount the possibility of Roman Reigns keeping that until next year. I don't think people will have a problem because Roman Reigns, I think, has done a fine job with the title. The only issue is, I think after yesterday, a lot of people think that it's only a matter of time before Edge wins this championship back. I mean, yes, the Universal title wasn't in existence when he retired, but getting a heavyweight title, I think, is in the cards for Edge down the line. I can't see him making this return after all of these years and then not come up with gold at some point. He's got to win a championship.
Right.
You know? Right. So that pretty much was Raw tonight. You know, for a regular episode of Raw, I don't think it was all that bad. But for the night after WrestleMania, it sure was lacking. It sure was lacking. Absolutely was lacking. And speaking of lacking, I agree with you, Scorpio. I'll say this for free 1,000 times over. Wrestling-edge.com is a lot of clickbait. I've had it with most of those wrestling news websites. I mean, there's so much garbage. They report nonsense for months. And then once, you know, the facts come out and they reported wrong, then they post follow-ups. Oh, no, this was supposed to happen, but Vince changed his mind, just like The Fiend. Just like The Fiend. The Fiend loses to Randy Orton yesterday. Everybody hates it. So what did Goofs report today? Oh, The Fiend was supposed to win, but Vince changed his mind. And that's only designed because people hated the outcome, so we'll blame Vince McMahon. And in the process, it looks like they have sources because people will be angrier at the possibility of Vince McMahon changing the winner of that match instead of, you know, the fact that these websites reported bullshit from the beginning.
Right.
So, but just to get back to what I was saying, I think a very, COVID or not, a very, very disappointing Raw after WrestleMania, especially when WWE on their website and on social media all day long were asking fans, what are your favorite moments of the Raw after WrestleMania? What are your favorite moments? And you start rehashing all of these insanely magical moments that happened to Raw after WrestleMania. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not lying, I'm thinking to myself earlier that, wow, they're bringing up all these big memories. They got something planned tonight. Something that even with COVID, it's going to leave everybody remembering. And we end up with T-Bar+Mace attacking Drew McIntyre. It's not as bad as Baron Corbin, but it's awfully close because it's so random. You know? So I think overall a disappointing Raw after WrestleMania.
Yeah, no, it was average at best. I mean, there was nothing. There was no surprises. There was no lead outs. I mean, if Retribution is a surprise, that's pretty low-ended. Charlotte was at least an interesting return, but like I talked about earlier, the return of Charlotte means the angst of many fans. And what else do we get? Viking Raiders. And we got Maurice. I guess Maurice. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. For those of you that like a leggy blonde, at least you got Maurice tonight, right?
Oh, Charlotte had some legs tonight, too. I know Renee Young took notice of it.
Good night for leg fans. For people that were fans of leg show, it was a good night for you.
Yeah. So Friday will be SmackDown. We'll see if Becky Lynch does make a return. We'll see the further welts, you know, the bruising of Sasha Banks' midsection from Bianca's hair. I think SmackDown is going to be a hell of a lot better than what we got on Raw tonight. So even though it's not the night after WrestleMania, I think SmackDown, they are setting up for some pretty cool moments. You know, we'll see what happens.
Right.
So any final thoughts before we call it?
Nope.
Yeah.
Not really. Maybe just letting people know that we just celebrated our 11 years of doing Wrestling Soup. I know it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but you know,
that's awesome, man.
So, I mean, I know that there's a lot of podcasts that have done longer than us, but that's all right. So,
That's
Thank you
awesome,
very
man.
much.
You know what it was? We talked about it on Patreon last week, so a whole week went by, and it didn't even cross my mind. But seriously, congrats to you and Joey Numbers. A phenomenal 10 years, and it was a blast to witness everything going down as it went along, and to see the Stitcher Awards, and to see some of the controversy over the years, and just to see the show gel, develop. And like I said, the episode that always got me was the episode that they did about that woman with the one eyebrow that texted her boyfriend into killing himself, which is a disgusting story. Yeah. These guys talked about it for 45 minutes. I expected wrestling discussion. And for 45 minutes, they talked about unibrow. And I just was just glued. And that,
sometimes people, we've been doing wrestling for many years, but the Frank and Gus side kind of started, a couple years ago and stuff like that. And I think that, me and Joe have been talking to each other for so long. There's more to our lives in the show than just wrestling. So, I
goes
think
much deeper.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much to the people that appreciate us.
Yeah, and everyone, don't forget, you got patreon.com/wrestling soup. Their show Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So you're doing an anniversary show this week?
I think me and Joel will work on something. I think we might do a little something on Wednesday. So we'll see how that works out.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much for having me on. I will see everybody tomorrow on the Patreon. And talk to you guys next week.
Happy anniversary again, my friend. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.
So that's pretty cool, everyone. 10-year anniversary for Wrestling Soup. That's awesome. So if you want to go check it out, they have Twitter @Wrestling Soup. Drop by, wish them a happy anniversary. I kind of feel a little embarrassed because we talked about it on Patreon last Tuesday, and with everything going on with WrestleMania, it just totally left my mind. But good for them. Good for them. Here's to another 10 years. Absolutely. So everyone, post your comments. I've been responding to comments the last 2 days nonstop on YouTube. So post your comments about tonight's Raw, this show, some of the discussion we had about some of the storylines, the Charlotte talk, and I will get back to you. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, Mish and I will be on Patreon doing our Breakfast Soup episode there. And I posted an announcement earlier about some added content that's going to be coming to the channel shortly. So we'll get into a little bit of details tomorrow. Also tomorrow I will officially announce the winners of the Patreon predictions contest. I think we pretty much have the winners set already. Somebody was perfect. Predicted every match correct from WrestleMania, which is impressive. A lot of people give me credit that I predicted Randy Orton. I know on Friday I chose The Fiend, but when I did my Patreon predictions, I said, and I'm going to go with Randy Orton just to go against the grain, and sure enough, Randy Orton won. I'm not happy with that, but so everyone, look, stay safe, enjoy the rest of the week. Obviously, you'll hear me many times this week. Tomorrow on Patreon, Wednesday for Wednesday Night Dynamite. Oh, and one last thing before I go. As far as the NXT recap and AEW, I am doing both this Wednesday night. It's going to be a regular Wednesday Night Dynamite episode. A majority of you out there who have spoke out already prefer that I cover NXT and AEW on Wednesdays like I do now. Once we start getting NXT airing on Tuesdays, if a lot of you out there want me to do an NXT recap on Tuesdays, like split the show in half a show on Tuesday, half a show on Wednesday, cover NXT on Tuesday and AEW on Wednesday, you got to speak out because majority rules, obviously. But as far as this week goes, I don't want anybody, after NXT Tuesday, hey, where's the recap? Wednesday, I will cover both. Maybe that changes in the near future, but that's based on your feedback because I'm here for all of you. So everyone, thank you for a great night. One last time, if you enjoyed the show, before you exit, that big fat thumb that you see on the channel, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the episode, give it a thumbs down. Just interact, because that helps the channel more than you know. So as a lot of people say, like, share, subscribe. That will help us tremendously. So you all have a great night. Be well. And I'll catch you either Tuesday on Patreon or Wednesday right here on YouTube. So good night, everybody. Take care and be well. Ciao.